It was a Friday night in late September when I heard my fiancée laugh about trapping me with a baby. I wasn't supposed to be listening. I was in my home office, headphones half on, debugging code for a client deadline. But her voice carried through our Chicago apartment like it owned the place. "Once I'm pregnant, he won't dare walk away," Ariel said, and her friends erupted in laughter. I sat frozen at my desk, the glow of my monitor illuminating my face in the darkness. My name is Caleb Dorsey. I'm 33 years old, an IT engineer who believes in planning everything, from retirement accounts to how I organize my browser tabs. I thought I was engaged to the love of my life. A woman whose smile made me believe in second chances after my parents' brutal divorce. But in that moment, listening to her plot my future like a corporate merger, I realized I'd been living in a fantasy. That laugh, that casual, confident laugh, it would haunt me for weeks. Just before you continue to watch, please subscribe to this channel and like this video. It would encourage and help us keep creating amazing content for you. Alright, back to the story. But here's what I didn't know yet. That conversation wasn't just girl talk. It wasn't even the worst thing she'd said about me. What I was about to discover in her phone, in her private messages, in the digital trail she thought was invisible, would reveal a conspiracy so calculated, so cold, that it made that Friday night laugh sound like mercy. This wasn't just about a baby. This was about money. Control. A carefully architected trap that had been months in the making. And I was the only one who didn't know I was already caught. Or so she thought. It was September 23rd, a Friday that started like any other. Ariel had texted me that afternoon. "Girls coming over tonight, babe. Wine and gossip. You'll be fine in your cave, right?" She always called my office my cave. I'd laughed and sent back a thumbs up emoji, grateful for the alone time to finish a security audit that was already 2 days behind schedule. By 8 p.m., I could hear them in the living room. Ariel's voice, Monique's sharp cackle, Tasha's softer giggle, the sound of a cork popping, the clinking of glasses. Normal Friday night, sounds in our apartment that I'd learned to tune out over the past 2 years of living together. I was deep in code, tracking a potential vulnerability in a client's payment system, when I heard my name cut through the music and laughter like a knife through silk. "Caleb's so predictable," Ariel said, her voice carrying that edge of affection mixed with something else I couldn't quite place. "It's honestly perfect for what I'm planning." My fingers stopped moving on the keyboard. I pulled one side of my headphones back, listening without meaning to. That's when I heard it. "Once I'm pregnant, he won't dare walk away." The words hit me like cold water. My hand moved instinctively to pause the music in my headphones, and suddenly their conversation was crystal clear through the thin walls of our apartment. "Girl, you're really doing it," Monique said, her voice pitched with excitement and something darker. "Approval, maybe. Or envy." Ariel laughed. That same laugh that had made me fall in love with her at a tech conference 2 years ago. The laugh I'd recorded on my phone just to listen to on bad days. "He's been talking about waiting until after the wedding," she said. "Something about financial planning and timing. But I'm 28. I'm not waiting for his spreadsheets to align." Tasha said something I couldn't quite catch, but Ariel's response was unmistakable. "He'll marry me no matter what. He's too nice not to. And honestly, a baby locks it in. No cold feet. No last-minute doubts. Just us, forever." The way she said forever made it sound like a life sentence. My chest felt tight. My hands were shaking slightly as I reached for my phone, my engineering mind already calculating, processing, planning. I opened the voice memo app and hit record. After they left around midnight, I sat alone in my office with my laptop open and my phone connected to my external speakers. I'd recorded 47 minutes of audio. I couldn't bring myself to listen to all of it at first. I kept replaying that one section. Her voice, so confident and casual, outlining a plan to trap me into fatherhood. "Forgetting pills isn't that hard," she'd said at one point, and her friends had laughed like it was the punchline to a joke. "Men never check. They just trust you." It's honestly adorable how naive they are. I'd spent the past 6 months working overtime to save for her dream wedding. A destination ceremony in Napa Valley that would cost nearly $40,000. Money I'd been carefully setting aside from every paycheck, cutting back on everything from coffee to streaming services. I'd been so proud of myself for being responsible, for planning our future carefully. The laugh track of her betrayal played on repeat in my headphones. Each giggle felt like a knife twisting deeper. But underneath the pain, something else was growing. Something cold and methodical. I wasn't just hurt. I was calculating. And in my line of work, calculation was everything. Being an IT security engineer has its advantages. I understand systems. I understand how data moves, where it hides, and how people think they've deleted things when they've really just moved them somewhere less obvious. Ariel had always been casual about digital security. She used the same password for everything, a combination of her childhood dog's name and her birth year. I tried to get her to use a password manager dozens of times. She'd always wave me off with a smile. That Sunday morning, while she slept in after a late Saturday night out with the same friends, I sat at the kitchen table with her laptop open in front of me. Her phone was charging on the counter. I'd watched her enter her passcode so many times I could do it in my sleep. For digits. Her mom's birthday. I backed up her WhatsApp to her laptop using a simple protocol she didn't even know existed. Most of her chats were exactly what I expected. Work stuff. Plans with friends. Messages to her sister. Then I found the group chat. It was called Queens Only, with a crown emoji. The first message that caught my eye was from 3 months ago. He's too loyal for his own good. Time to secure my future, LOL. I kept scrolling, my coffee growing cold beside me. The chat history went back almost a year, right around the time I proposed. The messages painted a picture I'd been too blind to see. Even if it backfires, I can say it was an accident, Ariel had written in July. Men always take the blame, especially the nice ones. Monique had replied with a string of laughing emojis. Girl, you're terrible, but also genius. Tasha had added, just make sure you're actually in love though. Kids are forever. Ariel's response made my stomach turn. I love the life he can give me. Same thing, right? I took screenshots of everything. Every message. Every voice note where they discussed her plan in detail. Every emoji reaction that showed her friends weren't just tolerating this scheme, but actively encouraging it. I created a folder on my encrypted drive and labeled it Project Truth. Then I backed up that folder to 3 separate cloud services. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady, precise. I was building a case like I'd build a security audit. Every vulnerability documented. Every exploit logged. I smiled grimly. Instead of confronting her, I had a much better idea. For the next 3 weeks, I became the best version of the man she thought she was manipulating. I made her favorite breakfast every Sunday. Eggs Benedict with the hollandaise sauce that took 45 minutes to prepare correctly. I planned date nights at the restaurants she'd been wanting to try. I even started conversations about baby names, watching her face light up with what I now recognized as victory rather than joy. I love the name Oliver for a boy, I said one evening over dinner at an Italian place in River North. She'd ordered the most expensive wine on the menu, something she'd been doing more often lately. Celebrating her impending success, probably. Oliver Dorsey, she said, testing it out. That's actually really cute, Caleb. She reached across the table to squeeze my hand. You're going to be such an amazing dad. I smiled and squeezed back, even as I mentally added another folder to Project Truth. This one was labeled Performance Reviews. Every time she pushed the baby conversation, every time she got that calculating look in her eyes. The day she stopped taking her pills, I knew it, because I checked the trash and found the discarded blister pack, 1 day short of a full cycle. On October 12th, I found the pregnancy test. It was sitting in the bathroom cabinet, still in its drugstore bag, tucked behind her hair products where she thought I'd never look. I'm not the kind of guy who goes through his partner's things typically, but these weren't typical circumstances. I didn't touch it, didn't move it, just noted its presence and waited to see what she'd do next. That night, she was more affectionate than usual, more physically intimate, more insistent. I understood what was happening. This was the timeline. This was the moment she'd chosen. Something had shifted in me over those 3 weeks. I didn't feel angry anymore. Anger was too hot, too reactive. What I felt was something colder. Clarity. Purpose. I could see the whole architecture of her plan now, and I understood that confronting her in the moment would just give her space to deny, to spin, to reframe everything as a misunderstanding. I needed more. I needed her to realize that every move she'd made had been watched, documented, archived. I let her believe her plan was working. Meanwhile, I started my own plan. I called it Project Reversal. The engagement ring had cost me $11,000. A princess-cut diamond that Ariel had picked out herself after dropping increasingly obvious hints for 3 months before I proposed. I'd bought it from a jeweler in the Gold Coast, a family-owned place that had been in business for 40 years. On October 15th, I called them. "I have a question about your return policy," I said, keeping my voice casual. Professional. The owner, a man named Harold who'd helped me pick out the ring, remembered me immediately. "The Dorsey ring," he said warmly. "One of my favorites from last year. Is everything all right?" "Just checking on something for insurance purposes," I lied smoothly. "I know you mentioned something about a return clause when I purchased it." There was a pause. Then Harold said carefully, "We do have a 1-year return policy for unused engagement rings. 90% refund if the ring is returned in original condition within 12 months of purchase." That conversation felt better than 3 weeks of therapy would have. $10,000 back. Not quite whole, but close enough. But I wasn't done, not until her friends knew the truth too. Ariel wanted to cook for Monique and Tasha. She said it would be nice, intimate, a way to thank them for being such good friends during wedding stress. I offered to help. Actually, I insisted. I made the main course, a Mediterranean chicken dish that took 2 hours to prepare. I set the table with our good dishes. I even bought flowers for the centerpiece. They arrived at 7, bottles of wine in hand, compliments ready. "Caleb, you're amazing," Monique said, accepting a glass of Pinot Grigio. "Ariel is so lucky." "I'm the lucky one," I said, smiling at Ariel across the kitchen island. She beamed back at me, completely convinced that everything was going according to her plan. Dinner was perfect. Conversation flowed. They talked about work, about vacation plans, about mutual friends. At one point, Tasha raised her glass. "To family," she said. "The ones we choose and the ones we create." Everyone clinked glasses. I watched them laugh and drink and celebrate what they thought was Ariel's impending victory. As they laughed, I sent the full voice note of their original conversation to their Queen's Only Crown group chat from an anonymous number. Time to arrive right in the middle of dessert. Chapter 10. The Sudden Silence. At 8:16, Tasha's phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it, then froze. Her face went completely white. She picked up her phone with shaking hands, and I watched her expression shift from confusion to recognition to pure panic. Her eyes darted toward Ariel, then quickly to me, trying to gauge if I knew. Monique noticed first. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice cutting through the comfortable dinner conversation. Tasha couldn't speak. She just held out her phone. Monique leaned over to look, and her wine glass slipped from her hand, red liquid spreading across the white tablecloth like a wound. Ariel looked between them, her smile faltering. "What's going on? You guys are being weird." I kept my expression neutral. Curious, but not concerned. Just a confused dinner host wondering why his guests were acting so strange. I even offered Monique a cloth for the spill. Tasha whispered, her voice barely audible, "You might want to check your phone." She wouldn't look at Ariel. She wouldn't look at me. She just stared at the spilled wine as if it held all the answers to the mess they had made. She opened her phone, and I watched her smile melt. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through the chat, her own voice, her own confident, cruel words, mocking me from the screen. The color drained from her face as the reality of the situation crashed down on her. Monique was the first to move. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "I just remembered I have an early morning tomorrow," she said, her voice too loud, too forced. "Thank you for dinner, Caleb. It was lovely." She couldn't meet my eyes. Tasha followed immediately. "Yeah, me too. Early morning. Thanks so much." They were gathering their purses, their jackets, moving toward the door like the apartment was on fire, muttering lies about needing to prepare for meetings. Ariel hadn't moved. She was still staring at her phone, probably trying to figure out who'd sent the message, who'd betrayed her. It never occurred to her that it was me. The moment the door shut behind her friends, she turned to me, her eyes wide with a terror I'd never seen before. "Caleb," she said, her voice shaking. "I can explain." She stammered, saying it was just a joke, that everyone exaggerates with friends. She claimed the messages were taken out of context, that I couldn't possibly understand the pressure she was under. I said nothing. I just sat there, watching her construct a flimsy fortress of lies. I let her talk for a full 5 minutes, her explanations becoming more desperate and convoluted with each passing second. She insisted it was just girl talk, a harmless way to vent frustrations, and that I was being overly sensitive for taking it seriously. When she finally ran out of breath, I calmly pulled out my own phone. I didn't say a word. I just played the audio again, on full volume. Her voice filled the room, confident and cruel. Once I'm pregnant, he won't dare walk away. I let the recording play, including the part where she called me adorably naive, and her friends howled with laughter. The sound echoed in the silent apartment, each word a verdict. She flinched as if struck. The desperate excuses died on her lips. Still sound like a joke? I asked, as she started to cry. Between sobs, she admitted it. She'd gone off her pills 3 weeks ago. The confession spilled out of her in a torrent of self-pity and twisted logic. She said she just wanted to feel safe, that she was terrified of losing me to career ambition. She framed it as an act of love, a desperate measure to secure the future she felt was slipping away. Her reasoning sounded hollow, a script she'd prepared for herself in case her plan ever came to light. She painted herself as the victim of her own fears, a woman driven to deception by her overwhelming love for me. It was a masterful performance, full of tears and trembling hands. For a moment, a younger, more naive version of myself might have even believed her. But I wasn't that man anymore. She had killed him on that Friday night. As she paused to catch her breath, wiping away tears with the back of her hand, I quietly reached into my pocket. I set her phone on the table between us, unlocked, with her chat screenshots open. The messages from Queen's only crown were displayed in stark, undeniable black and white. Her jaw dropped as she saw the screenshots. The sight of her own typed words, "He's too loyal for his own good. Time to secure my future, LOL," seemed to shock her more than the audio recording. "I didn't mean it like that," she said, shaking her head as if to physically dislodge the evidence in front of her. "That was just venting. It's not what I really think." I replied, my voice devoid of emotion. "You meant it exactly like that. You wrote it. You planned it. You executed it. You just didn't expect to get caught." She began to beg then, a low, desperate sound. She begged me not to tell her parents, who adored me and saw me as the stable influence she needed. She pleaded with me not to tell my parents, who she already knew were skeptical of her. Her image, her reputation, was suddenly the most important thing in the world. It was never about us. It was always about her. "Please, Caleb, we can fix this. Just don't ruin my life over a stupid mistake." "A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk," I said. This was a conspiracy. I told her I wouldn't tell her parents. Not yet. For 3 days, she tried to win me back. Flowers appeared on my desk. She cooked my favorite meals, the ones that took hours. She filled our apartment with a performance of remorse, complete with tears, apologies, and promises to change. "We can go to therapy," she'd pleaded. "We can work through this. I'll do anything." But love can't survive where trust has been buried. The woman I saw wasn't my fiancée. She was a stranger trying to manipulate her way out of consequences. I pretended to soften. I accepted the flowers. I ate the dinners. I allowed her to believe there was a path back to the man I used to be. I gave her hope because I needed her to stay complacent just a little while longer. My final move required her to believe she was still in the game, that her apologies were working their magic on the too loyal man she thought she knew so well. Then, on the 4th day, I sent out the wedding invitations anyway. The beautiful, expensive ones we had picked out together months ago. They went to our entire guest list. They were just not for the reason she thought. The day before our scheduled wedding, guests received a beautifully printed postponement notice via overnight mail. It was designed to match the invitations perfectly. It offered no explanation, just a simple, elegant message about unforeseen circumstances. Ariel panicked, her phone lighting up with calls and texts from confused family and friends. She called me 17 times in a row, each call going straight to voicemail. Finally, a text came through, frantic and full of typos. I let her spiral for an hour before I responded. My text was short and calm. "Don't worry. The venue is canceled, but everyone will still hear your vows." Her reply was a single question mark. She had no idea what was coming. She thought this was the worst of it, a public but manageable embarrassment. She thought we would have a quiet, messy breakup. She still didn't understand that I wasn't just ending our relationship. I was publishing the unedited terms and conditions of her betrayal. Then I uploaded a private video to YouTube, sending the link to our entire guest list. The title was The Real Proposal. The video began with our engagement moment. Her tears, my smile, the perfect sunset over Lake Michigan. It was the fairy tale she'd always wanted. Then, the screen abruptly cut to black. A single screenshot appeared. Her WhatsApp message, "He's too loyal for his own good." It was followed by the audio clip of her plotting to trap me with a baby. No commentary. No narration from me. Just 14 minutes of raw, undeniable evidence. Her own words, her own voice, her own screenshots, all laid out in a chronological timeline of her deceit. I had sent it as an unlisted link, intended only for our family and friends. But someone in that circle decided it needed a wider audience. Within 48 hours, it was public and had hit 200,000 views. It was shared across Reddit, Twitter, and inevitably, her company's internal Slack channels. The fallout was immediate and brutal. People didn't just see a breakup. They saw a meticulously documented case of premeditated betrayal. The internet, in its faceless judgment, was far harsher than I ever could have been. Ariel's boss called her in for a private meeting about her character and judgment. She lost her upcoming promotion. The character clause in her employment contract was invoked, citing the public nature of the scandal as detrimental to the company's image. Her parents stopped answering her calls after my father forwarded them the video link with the simple subject line, "I think you need to see this." Her friends, Monique and Tasha, publicly distanced themselves, claiming they had been uncomfortable with her jokes and never thought she was serious. She messaged me, a long, rambling text filled with rage and disbelief. "How could you do this to me? You destroyed my life, my career, my family, all because of a stupid joke. I hate you." I waited a full day to reply. My response was only one sentence. "I didn't do this to you. You did it to yourself." I just pressed play. I blocked her number after that. I thought that would be the end of it, the final word in our destroyed story. I started moving her things into boxes, preparing to cleanse my apartment of her memory and start the long, quiet process of healing. But she wasn't done begging yet. I underestimated her desperation. One night she showed up at my apartment crying, saying she missed me, saying we could start over. She looked exhausted, a ghost of the vibrant woman I had planned to marry. She had bypassed the building's security by waiting for another resident to open the main door. I let her talk. I stood in the doorway as she went through every excuse, every half-lie, every tearful appeal. She claimed the video was an invasion of her privacy. She said her jokes were a coping mechanism for her fear of losing me. She insisted that what she had planned to do was born from love, not malice. I listened to it all without interruption. When she was finally finished, her voice hoarse from crying and pleading, I asked her one simple question. A question that had been burning in my mind for weeks. Would you still love me if the trap had worked? She stared at me, her mouth slightly open. She wanted to say yes. I could see the lie forming in her eyes, the desperate calculation of what I wanted to hear. But she couldn't say it. The silence stretched between us, thick with everything she had done. I closed the door slowly. That was her real answer. Weeks later, after I'd changed the locks and packed away the last of her belongings, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. I almost deleted it, assuming it was more hate mail or spam from the viral fallout. The subject line was just 2 words, from Monique. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. The email was short and surprisingly sincere. She wrote, Caleb, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, and I don't deserve your forgiveness. What Ariel planned was wrong, and I was wrong for laughing along. I've done a lot of thinking since that night. You did what most men would never have the guts to do. Thank you for showing her who she really was. Maybe now she'll finally learn. It was a strange feeling, being thanked by one of her co-conspirators. It didn't make me proud, just tired. It was a hollow victory. I was about to archive the email and move on with my life, until I saw the last line, a postscript that felt like a final, gossipy twist of the knife. P.S. She's seeing someone new. Curious, I checked her new boyfriend's social media. Her friend's email was right. She hadn't wasted any time. I found his profile easily enough. His name was Mark, a financial planner with a kind smile and a bio full of inspirational quotes about living authentically. He was the same type as me. Naive. Romantic. His feed was full of earnest posts about finding his forever person. Ariel was already all over it. Photos of them at brunch, captions about how the universe sends you what you need. She was using the same lines, the same heart emojis, the same performance of perfect love that she had used on me. I scrolled through his pictures, seeing myself a few years ago. The hopeful expression, the belief in the best of people, the complete unawareness of the game being played just beneath the surface. For a moment, a fierce, protective urge rose in me. I composed a message, my fingers hovering over the send button. A simple link to the YouTube video. A warning. Then I deleted it. I debated warning him, but decided karma needed no help. He would learn his own lessons. And besides, my involvement in Ariel's life was officially over. I started therapy. Turns out revenge doesn't fill the hole betrayal leaves. It just outlines it in neon. My therapist, a no-nonsense woman named Dr. Anya Sharma, helped me unpack the layers of my anger and grief. We talked about how my methodical, evidence-based revenge was a product of my personality. "You're an engineer, Caleb," she said. "You saw a catastrophic system failure, and you documented it before decommissioning the system. It's how you process the world. But documenting the failure didn't fix the pain. The victory felt hollow. Exposing her didn't erase the fact that the woman I loved had viewed me as a means to an end. It didn't restore the 2 years I had invested in a future built on lies. But it did restore balance. It ensured that her plan had consequences beyond my own broken heart. It was a painful, public, and permanent correction to a secret, manipulative plot. It wasn't healing, not yet. But sometimes, holding someone accountable for the chaos they create is the only thing that allows you to start. Until one morning, I got a new message from Ariel herself. She wrote, "I deserved everything you did. I just hope you heal faster than I did." It arrived as a simple text from her old number, which I had unblocked weeks ago in a moment of wanting to feel nothing. I read it once, then a second time, searching for the familiar undertones of manipulation, the subtle plea for a response, the hidden angle. But there wasn't one. This time, her words felt different. They were stripped of excuses and blame. It wasn't the desperate apology of a woman caught in a lie, but the quiet admission of someone who had finally been forced to look at their own reflection. It was the kind of genuine remorse I had once wished for, but now that it was here, it felt strangely irrelevant to my own life. It wasn't manipulative this time. It was human. I didn't reply. Some messages are better left unanswered. Forgiveness was a project for another day, maybe another lifetime. My own healing had nothing to do with her anymore. Instead, I archived the chat, next to Project Truth, and the video file that had changed both our lives forever. I sold the engagement ring, and the $10,000 check felt like the first clean slate I'd had in years. I donated half the money to a local shelter for single fathers, a place that provided legal aid and support for men who found themselves in situations not unlike the one I had narrowly escaped. The thank you letter they sent me meant more than the diamond ever had. The rest I used to start a small cybersecurity firm on the side. My first clients were people going through messy divorces, looking to secure their digital lives from prying exes. I taught them about password managers, two-factor authentication, and how to spot spyware. Every client I protect reminds me that trust, digital or emotional, is everything. It's a system that, once breached, requires a complete overhaul. You can't just patch the vulnerability. You have to rebuild the entire architecture on a stronger foundation. In a way, Ariel had given me an unwilling gift. My deepest personal betrayal had become my most compelling professional lesson. And sometimes, betrayal is the best business lesson a man can get. People ask if I ever really loved her. The answer is yes. I loved the Ariel I thought I knew with an intensity that surprises even me now. I loved her laugh before I knew what it was hiding. I loved the future I thought we were building, brick by painful brick. But love without respect isn't love. It's a cage waiting for the door to shut. She saw me not as a partner, but as a project, a security plan to be executed. Her trap was biological, a 9-month countdown to a life I hadn't chosen. Mine was digital, an irrefutable log of her own choices. She almost trapped me with a baby, a life created to bind me to her forever. Instead, I trapped her with her own truth, a reality that couldn't be denied or undone. That's the thing about the truth. Unlike a pregnancy, it can't be explained away. There's no doubt about its paternity. It just is. As I finally closed the folder labeled Project Truth on my desktop, a pop-up appeared from the video editing software I'd used. "Would you like to start a new project?" it asked. I smiled for the first time in months. "No," I typed. Story complete. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like this video, comment, and smash the subscribe button. Also check out other videos on the channel. We've got more interesting stories for you.